Football in Australia can mean many things. Football for me means soccer, but football in Queensland means rugby league. And if you come from one of the southern states like Victoria or South Australia, then football can mean AFL.
So, I think the greatest percentage of reaction videos that are on YouTube are Americans talking about Australian culture as opposed to people from other countries talking about other culture. So this video is actually a British guy whose channel is called That Johnson Life, and he's from the UK. So he talks about the top 8 culture shocks when moving to Australia. I like listening to this guy because there is that influence of British humour there when he speaks. And, well, yeah, he is a bit funny at times. So I'm going to have a listen to what he says about the top 8 culture shocks when moving to Australia and just give my reaction or my thoughts. So let's jump in.
Now, I love living in Australia, but when we first moved over here, it was a little bit weird. Now, to stop things being so weird for you when you make the move, these are our top 8 culture shocks when moving to Australia. Australians love their sport.
So I'm just going to give away a little secret. That is that there's actually a lot of Australians who really couldn't give a rat's ass about sport. Those of us who really don't care about the AFL or about the cricket or anything like that. But Australian sports followers are the ones who make the most noise. And of course the media loves sport as well. So while there is, I guess, probably a majority of Australians there who do love their sports, there are still a heck of a lot of us who don't care about it. But you don't hear that because it's always pushed in the media.
But unless you're from Australia, sometimes the sport is a little bit strange. For example, football isn't football. And I'm not really talking about soccer, or am I? It really freaks me out to say the word soccer. For me, I know what football is. And for Australians, they also know what football is. But when you move to Australia, just resign yourself to the fact that you're now probably going to follow the minority sport. And also need a special subscription just to be able to watch it. Football in Australia can mean many things. Football for me means soccer, but football in Queensland means rugby league. And if you come from one of the southern states like Victoria or South Australia, then football can mean AFL. And I still don't understand how that game works, but I want to learn. You can still have a beer at an AFL game, right? But if you come from the UK like me, and you still want to watch your beloved football, then you're going to have to become a social hermit, bound to the wee hours of the night, just to watch your darling Premier League. If you don't like it, then take up one of the other many forms of football. And if you're American, well, they also kind of play baseball and stuff too, but probably not your form of football. It'd be like too hot in all the pads and stuff. Or imagine getting a spider in your helmet.
So, as I mentioned, I don't follow sports. I'm not into AFL, I'm not into rugby, I'm not into soccer. So, I apologise if I get this wrong, but this is my perspective. Now, this is also the perspective of someone who lives in the southern part of Australia. So, if you're a Queenslander and you disagree with me, please feel free to correct me down below. But to me, what he's referred to are 3 entirely different sports. First of all, UK football is what I would call soccer. It's not football, it's soccer. That's a different sport altogether. Different rules. Then you have rugby. To me, that's rugby, that's not football. It's different again from football. And then AFL, that is football. Australian Football League. It even has football in the title. Whereas rugby, Australian Rugby League, it's rugby. Different sport. Let me know what you think. Do you think they're all entirely different sports? Or do you follow the UK idea of them all just being a type of footy?
The second shock that we had coming from the antisocial rest of the world is the fact that in Australia, people are actually friendly to you. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, people are friendly in other parts of the world. But Australians are kind of like this weird level of friendly. People greet you on the street. Neighbours come up to your house and welcome you to the neighbourhood. People actually offer you help. Now for me, being the antisocial hermit that I am watching my Premier League, people being friendly to me was a little bit weird and it just took a little bit of getting used to. But when it happens to you in Australia, it really does make you realise how nice the world can be. Now hey, you're going to think to yourself, people around the world are nice, and lots of them are. And you normally notice it when you're on holiday. Maybe it's the weather that makes people happier. Because I can tell you that the dreary darkness of winter kind of makes people the opposite.
Okay, I have to disagree with that. Because if you go down to Tassie, that is the coldest place in Australia. It is the dreariest place in Australia. Something I discovered when I moved to Central Victoria is that in Central Victoria, you get more sunlight in about 3 months than you do in the entire year in Tasmania. But Tasmanians are overall the most friendly people that you are going to meet in Australia. It's just the way it is, but, you know, okay, Tasmanians are probably also seasonally affected to some extent. I know people do struggle with that, and personally for me, moving to a warmer, sunnier place definitely made a difference. But at the same time, Tasmanians are really, really friendly people. So saying that it's the warmer weather that makes people friendly, yeah, nah. It's just what we're like in Australia. We're just friendly people.
To be honest, this is one of the best culture shocks of Australia. Calling all social recluses out there. If you move to Australia, it's going to make you a better person. No one wants your social awkwardness or unfriendly banter. Australians are genuinely friendly, unless they don't like you. But there's no beating around the bush.
That said, chances are, unless you are a complete, utter, rude tosser, most Australians are still going to be nice to you, regardless of whether or not they like you. They might have a joke with you, and that joke could actually be their way of saying that they don't like you. But at the same time, Australians joke all the time. So having a joke with you could also just be a friendly thing. It's a very subtle thing, and there are so many Australians who can't even tell when you're having a dig at them because you don't like them and they think you're their best mate.
I'll tell you straight. Now, coming from the northern hemisphere on the other side of the world, having a cold Christmas becomes a rite of passage. But here, cold Christmases? Welcome to the heat, my friend. Christmas in summer. It's hot. Really hot. If you don't have aircon, you're gonna struggle. It's not dark. You and your family aren't just confined to one room watching each other open presents you probably didn't even want. Wishing that the TV was on so that you wouldn't have to make awkward conversation with family members who you hardly ever see apart from the festive time. Wondering to yourself, is it too early to start drinking yet? The fact is that with Christmas in Australia, you get to take all of the good bits of Christmas, like presents and spending time with family that you actually want to spend time with, and then add all the good things of summer, like going to the beach, spending time in the pool, having a barbecue in the sunshine. Don't hang on to your old traditions of Christmas, like your roast turkey with all of the trimmings. I mean, do hang on to them, but don't whinge that you're doing it in the heat. Have a barbecue instead. Savour the wonder that is a potato bake. Why did we not have these in England? Or if we did, I never had one. They're gorgeous. Make new traditions and embrace the fact that Christmas in summer is now your new life.
Okay, so first of all, I feel really, really sad that you don't have potato bake in the UK. That is like cheesy potato goodness. It is divine when made properly. Now, talking about Australian Christmas, I must admit I would like just once in my life to experience a white Christmas. But to me, and this must sound hilarious for people in the Northern Hemisphere, for me it would seem like a really odd kind of Christmas, almost like it wasn't Christmas. You know, in my family, yeah, we still do the traditional Christmas lunch, but I guess there's a difference. So a lot of families in Australia love a nice prawn cocktail as an entree on Christmas Day. You know, nice, chilled in the fridge, bit of lettuce in the bottom of the bowl, some prawns on top of that with a nice cocktail sauce on top of the prawns. You can do that because it's not cold. And we still do our roasts on Christmas Day, so a bit of roast beef, roast chicken, maybe roast turkey, and roast veggies. But you know, it's a spread. So you know, you have a spread, you have a lot of yummy food. It's really not a great deal different from traditional Christmases in the Northern Hemisphere, I guess. But the difference is that we like to do that outside. So long as we've got like a gazebo or something to keep the sunlight out, because somehow Christmas Day in Australia always seems to be one of the hottest days of the year. So eating outside, if you can set up a nice table area for everyone to sit at, so long as you've got a bit of shade, then it's just really nice sitting outside enjoying your Christmas dinner. Now, one thing that we do differently in Australia for Christmas is our pavlovas. And if you've not seen or heard of pavlovas, they are just the best. You have to look them up. I'll do a video sometime about pavlovas, but it's not Christmas Day if you don't have a slice of pav after lunch. Sure, Christmas pudding, but most people, the number one choice will be pav. Nice bit of cream on top, some fresh fruit on top. And of course, with that pav you might also have extra fruit, so raspberries or strawberries with a bit of cream, bit of icing sugar, all those sort of yummy Christmassy things. And because it is hot, you might even finish off with a little bit of ice cream. So for me, Christmas in Australia is pretty awesome. That whole just being outdoors, just relaxed. You feel more relaxed because you are outside, you're warm. You do go inside for drinks, you go inside to unwrap presents and stuff, but you know, you've got the best of both worlds. And of course, if it gets really super hot, there is of course always the beach after you've done your Christmas lunch, in between Christmas lunch and Christmas dinner.
Now, coming from cosmopolitan Europe, I was kind of used to this next one because people on the continent sometimes like to have a siesta. But at least they opened up the shops and stuff again. Now, I know that this can catch out the average Brit visiting Marbella for the first time and wondering why in the middle of the day all the shops are shut. But in Australia it goes to another extreme and shops just shut early. Want to get a coffee after 4 p.m? Yeah, nah. Don't be crazy. Why would you need that much caffeine in your system at night? It's going to go dark in a couple of hours. Want a takeaway after 9 p.m. on a Friday? Well, you better live in the city centre. Ain't no one going to work after 9 p.m. in the burbs. You crazy? Unless you're in the major cities, things in Australia are rarely 24 hours. People have a life. They don't want to sit there waiting in a restaurant or a shop for your convenience. Don't be so selfish. Why aren't things so convenient? Well, it turns out people don't actually want to work all the time, and you need to respect that. Get a bit more organised. Enjoy a night in. Realise that thing you think you need, you probably don't need right now. I'm sorry that the shop's shut early, but if you don't have that thing you want right now, is the world going to end? Probably not. And if it was that important, you wouldn't have forgotten it, right?
I think there's a few things to point out here. First of all, it comes down to what you're used to. So if you live in an area where a lot of shops close at 5 o'clock, then usually, and they are usually shops like clothing stores, jewellery stores, novelty stores. We're not talking about the supermarkets. So supermarkets are still open, and even bigger places like Kmart and Target are still open till 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. So it's not like everything closes at 5 o'clock. It's just that the more specialised businesses close at 5. And those sort of places, the places that you're going to go on a weekend instead. So in Australia, yeah, you might drop in at the supermarket on your way home from work and grab a few things. But I guess we just kind of like just finishing the day at work, going home, relaxing, and then just really enjoying our weekends. So, yeah, I guess for most Australians it doesn't seem odd that you can't go shopping for shoes after 5 o'clock, or you can't go shopping for a new dress after 5 o'clock. You just do that on the weekend, or if you've got a day off, if you don't work a 5-day full-time week, then you go on your days off. And a lot of Australians do work fewer hours. Like you said, it's about that whole working to live rather than living to work. So it's not uncommon for people to choose to work 4 days a week instead of 5 days a week so that they can enjoy the Australian lifestyle.
And this culture shock extends into the next one, and it's the work culture. And weirdly enough, most Australians don't like to work. I mean, they do. They do like to work. That's a massively sweeping statement. But fortunately for people who live here, we don't live to work. Working to live is an incredibly emancipating feeling. What's the point in going to work all day to earn money to then not have the time to spend it? I don't want to live a life like that, do you? Especially when you have all of this fantastic weather and beautiful scenery to spend it in. Except when it's a La Nina year. Like, the scenery's still there, but the weather's still a bit crap, and it has been for the last 2 years. Fortunately for most Australians, this laissez-faire attitude to work extends to lots of different industries. If you're sick of the daily grind in your job, then come to Australia and you can do the same thing but not work as hard. Wouldn't we all want to just do that?
Okay, there's something really important that needs to be acknowledged here because, and I know that he knows what he's talking about and he just isn't being specific enough, but there is this perception that we're all a bunch of slackasses here in Australia and that we just go to work and we're kind of just chilled and don't really do our jobs all that seriously. But that's not what it's like. Yeah, we do love our leisure time when we're away from work. So a lot of people do work fewer hours than full time. But the difference there is that at the same time, when we go to work, we still work our butts off. We still do our best with our jobs. It's not that we're slackasses at work. It's just that we go to work, we work our butts off, we do our job thoroughly, and then we go home and we relax and we can chill and we can live life. So, no, we're not slackers here in Australia. We do take our work seriously. We just don't make it our life.
But sometimes this incredibly laid-back nature can lend itself to some slightly weird / potentially unsafe habits. Barefoot in public? That one takes a little bit of getting used to. Especially living up here in the sunshine state of Queensland, seeing people go barefoot in your local Coles can be pretty much a daily occurrence. Lots of people do it, especially children. It's like they've got an allergy to shoes or thongs. Just put some thongs on, mate. Protect yourself. Now for us foreigners who are used to wearing shoes anyway just to keep our toes warm, seeing people go barefoot in public and it's not the beach or a swimming pool can be a little bit weird. But actually, rather than criticising or wondering if they've got asbestos in the soles of their feet, don't criticise, join them. Everyone talks about that feeling where you can spread your toes in the sand and how liberating it can be. Well, just go barefoot in public, mate. You get that feeling all the time, except when it's the middle of summer and you step on that black tarmac. Maybe put your thongs on then.
Now, Australia's barefoot culture is a whole other debate in itself. Now, and I have done a video covering this. So I'll link that video in the description below. So you can go and watch that rather than start trying to get into all the ins and outs of Australian barefoot culture. But I will say this one thing. Doesn't everybody go barefoot at the beach? That would just be really odd to go to the beach and wear shoes.
Now, if you thought going barefoot in public was rather informal or slightly offensive, then wait until the average Australian speaks to you. Don't get me wrong, most of them are educated, eloquent individuals, but the average Aussie does love a swear. They even do it on the radio. The first time I heard shit on the radio in the morning, I was wondering if my driving was okay or if someone was shouting at me in traffic. No, it was the person on the radio. I've even heard them drop the odd wanker, which can be wholly confusing to some of the people watching this that don't even know what a wanker is. They can say on the radio, yet I'm cursy enough to bleep on my videos. What a beautiful country we live in. Now don't get me wrong, they don't go for the hardcore stuff like fuck or bugger. Wait, bugger isn't really that bad, is it? Oh, I've buggered this up. But most Australians will drop the C-bomb at you as a term of endearment. How's it going? I know that for lots of people when they watch Game of Thrones, dropping the C-bomb was a big taboo. And if you don't like that word, sorry, Australia might not be for you. Because in Australia, lots of people like to swear and everyone's so you better get used to it. I don't think I've ever used that many bleeps in a video before. I really hope I bleeped all of those out.
You know, he's so right there. In Australia, we all bloody swear. It's just what we do. It's part of our culture. Even no matter what sort of education you are, it's just part of the vernacular. I will say that bugger has become such a commonplace word that most people don't consider it as swearing. If you go to, there's a little town in Tasmania called Colebrook, and painted on the roof of the pub in Colebrook is the word bugger in humongous writing. Now, I do want to address what he's saying about the C word, because where I come from, if you use, I don't use the C word ever. It is the most repulsive, offensive swear word ever, in as far as I am concerned. And from where I come from, you would never ever use that word. So it must be something that happens in little areas in Australia where it's somehow become acceptable to use that word and to talk to people, say, how you going, C? So my advice for anyone coming from overseas would be just don't use the C word. Unless you happen to be really chummy with someone, really good mates with someone, and they have consistently, in a friendly way, said to you, hey, how you going, C? Then don't try it, because chances are you're going to say it in the wrong region and you're going to get ostracised. Because for so many Australians, it's one of those words, it's probably the one swear word in Australia where a large number of Australians will not even say that word. And if they hear someone say that word, they will think very poorly of that person.
Now the last one is something that's awesome, but also one of my little pet peeves. In Australia, they have some of the best containers for sauce, in those little foldy things that just squeeze out perfectly. What an invention! But in Australia, if you want the privilege of sauce, you have to pay for it. Want some tomato sauce, mate? Yeah, that could be 15 cents, please. Or 30 cents if you want two, because they're like really small packets. Now don't get me wrong, not everywhere does charge for sauce. Thank the Lord. But lots of places do, and it's pretty common practice. If you're like my wife that just loves to slather everything in tomato ketchup, then not only calling it ketchup is going to be weird in Australia, because it's tomato sauce, as I've been told many times when I get that confusing look asking for ketchup. But like going to America and having to pay for something and then add on the sales tax, if you want sauce, you're going to have to pay a little bit more. But the good thing is we don't have to tip, because everyone gets a fair wage.
I guess at the end of the day, when you have to pay for sauce for your meat pie or whatever, it's because you're basically paying for the packaging. A lot of places don't like to have just bottles with sauce anymore because they are messy. They're probably not as hygienic as having those little plastic things with sauce in them. But it comes at a cost. If you're going to have those plastic things with sauce in them, then even, you know, as shops do, they buy them in bulk, but even still, the price goes up because of the packaging. So what you're paying for is packaging with your sauce rather than your sauce, which is kind of a sad state of affairs, really. I, for one, find it a bit frustrating when I go places and I buy like a meat pie and I want sauce with it and I have to pay for the sauce. But I guess it's just the way it is. And he's right, we don't have to pay a tip or anything. So I guess you just have to accept it. Obviously, if you go somewhere where you're going to buy like a hot dog and they put the sauce on for you, they're not going to charge you extra for that. That's in the price. And if you go somewhere and you can see they've got squeezy bottles where you can just squeeze the sauce on, that's part of the price as well. They're not going to charge you extra for that, unless they are complete utter wankers. But it would be very rare to see that. Thanks for listening. If you've liked this guy, that's his channel name right there. It's at That Johnson Life. So you can find them on Instagram, and he does have a YouTube channel which you can find using that same thing, at That Johnson Life. And I will add a link in the description to his channel so you can go and check out all his videos. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Also, if you've not already subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button. It's free for you and it helps me grow my channel. And lastly, please leave a comment below. Do you agree with my perspective on the things that have come up in this video, or do you have a completely different opinion?